Have you ever written a long formula in Excel, only to stare at it for 10 minutes trying to work out what's gone wrong? Today, I'm showing you how to write better formulas, debug them, and write them faster, and actually understand what's going on, so you can finally feel confident using Excel like a pro. We're covering everything from splitting long formulas, using the Excel Labs formula editor, to tracing errors and visualizing our formulas flow. Let's get right into it. So once in Excel, the formula bar is at the top here. To start typing a formula, we can click into it, or we can press F2 in any cell, and we need to start with the equals sign. Once we start typing a formula, the formula helper will drop down with auto population suggestions. We can use the arrow keys to navigate up and down, and then when we've highlighted the formula that we want to use, we press the tab key and it automatically completes the name within the formula. We can then start typing our formula. If you're not sure which function you want to use, you can use the insert function dialog. This pops up this dialog box. You can give a brief description of what you want to do and see if the search can find it, or you can click these categories and then browse through the relevant category to see what possibilities they are. As you're going through the formulas, you'll see it shows the arguments that are required for that function, and it also gives you a brief description of what the function can do. So if we do a little demonstration of a formula building using an ifs, just going to type if, down to ifs, press tab. Now we're going to start completing logical test 1. So our first test is going to be, is this array equal to this cell? And as we note, as we press comma, we're now seeing we're stepping through into the value of true. So we'll just put match 1. We're going to do the same for logical test 2, but we're going to use variable 2. We're going to call that match 2, and we're going to do the same for variable 3. A little tip for at the end of an if statement: if all of your arguments up to this point are true, then we don't need to list out every possibility. We can just type true and the result we want. I'm just going to put no match. Now if we close the parenthesis on that formula, you can see the formula function helper has now disappeared, indicating we've finished the formula. If we press enter, you can see our formula is now spilled down this array. So a quick tip whilst you're in your formulas, you can quickly navigate between the arguments within it using the hyperlinks. If we click up into the formula bar, you can see our formula helper appears again. And now you can see at the moment we're in value if true 1. However, if we were to hover over logical test 3, click this hyperlink, you can see it selects this array for us. We can quickly skip around the function here. Notice that when part of the function is highlighted, Excel now shows you the results of that element of the function. So we could highlight logical test 1, and you can see this is showing us our array that is being worked on in this part of the formula. And you can see here we're looking for variable 1, Arsenal, within this array, and you can see Arsenal is 4th place in the array, and we have our true in place 4. This is a quick way to debug your formulas by just quickly highlighting an element of it and checking whether it's working as you expected. Another useful function that Excel does automatically is you can see we have some highlighting here. So we've got F4 highlighted in orange, G4 highlighted in purple, and H4 highlighted in green. These colours match these cell variables here that we fed into the formula. So you can see F4 is orange, G4 is purple, and H4 is green. And you can also see the blue ranges that we've fed here have been highlighted in blue down here. A great way to make formulas more readable is to use named ranges within your formulas. So instead of looking at cell referencing and wondering what's in that cell, you can give that cell or cells a specific name that will help cue the reader of the formula exactly what it's looking at. So if we go to the name manager, which I've conveniently got up in my quick access toolbar, or if we press Ctrl and F3, we can commit a new range, and we can give that range a name. I'm going to call this variable 1. Scope's the workbook, and we're going to refer to this cell. If I click OK, you can see now we've got that variable name. The value it's returning is Arsenal. It's referring to sheet 1 F4, and if we click down here, you can see this gives us a visual highlighting of the cell it's referencing. A quick way to do this is also just to click into the cell, go up to your name up here. We're going to change G4 to variable 2, and we're going to do the same variable 3. So now these cells, if I click in them, you can see the name in the top left there, and we can also use the name manager to check what they refer to. So now in our formula, instead of referring to F4, we're going to start typing variable, and you can see as soon as we start typing, the auto population tool has recognized our named ranges. We can press down to these, press tab, and instead of F4, we now have variable 1 for Arsenal. Just doing the same for the other two. So now we have a formula that says variable 1, 2, and 3 as named ranges instead of cell references F5, G5, and H5. If you give your named range a useful name, then this can really help readability of formulas. Another way to help with readability is to split the formula up into rows and also to use indentation. So to do that, we're going to make our formula bar slightly taller so we can see. I'm just going to go to here. Now anywhere in the formula bar, if you press Alt and Enter, it does a line break. I'm going to split this formula up into each logical test and each true as 1 per row. So on our first row, we've got our logical test 1 and our true 1. On our second row, we're going to have our logical test 2 and our true 2. We're going to do that for all these rows. I'm just going to put our parenthesis at the end to mark the closure of the if statement. Now you can see, instead of a big, long, continuous string, the formula is now broken up nicely into each of its 4 components. You can also add indentation to help with this. However, it's not particularly easy straight in Excel because the tab key doesn't work within the formula bar. If we press enter, you can see that's maintained and stored. Where we clicked into the formula and used the hyperlinks to highlight elements to see the results in the little pop-up, you can actually see this as a permanent result within the formula bar by pressing F9. You can see now we have that within the formula bar. This might be slightly easier for you to visualize. However, just be aware that if you press enter, that result will remain within your formula. So just remember to hit the Control and Z key to undo that action afterwards. Another useful function within the formulas bar is to be able to trace precedents and dependents of formulas. So you can see how the workbook all ties together. So for example, on this formula, we could press the Control and open bracket, and you can see this is highlighting that this formula relies on these 2 variables and this range, and we can achieve the same outcome by clicking on trace precedents, and then we get an arrow visualization of exactly what's flowing in. This is a quick way to know what you can delete or what you need to maintain when you're working with formulas. To remove those arrows after, we can click the remove arrows button, and we can also check to see whether our data flows into any formulas, so how we can trace the dependents. So for example, if I click on the wins column here and press Control and close square bracket, you can see this is flowing through into this formula. So we need to maintain this cell for that formula. And again, we can click on this and click Trace Dependents, and we'll get our arrow visualization of where this data is flowing into. This is a really handy auditing tool for formulas. If you're using Microsoft Excel 365, there's a free Microsoft add-in called Excel Labs. This gives users a modern, enhanced formula editing environment. This has features like syntax highlighting, multi-line editing, and live previews, making complex formulas easy to write and debug. To get the add-in, we can go to the Home ribbon and Add-ins, and we can search for Excel Labs. You can see Excel Labs here. We click Add. This is going to install the add-in for us. So within here, you can see we have the option to open the advanced formula editing environment. So you can see now we've got this open on the side. When I click into one of the cells, our formula is displayed similar to how we see in the Excel formula bar. However, below we can see the steps that are being taken throughout. So you can see it's showing us the cell reference B6 and instantly the result of that. And likewise with the lookup, it's telling us F4. The result of that is Arsenal. So you can see this gives a much quicker visualization of how the formula is working and the results of each step. And when you hover over arrays, you can see we have a nice array pop out, which actually shows us the contents of those cells. You can also see the error that we were troubleshooting earlier. So we've got the results of the first two components of the formula, B6 plus the XLOOKUP, and you can quickly see that our error is in that third step of the XLOOKUP. I think you'll agree this is a nicer view than Excel's inbuilt formula error evaluator. So we can also commit this formula over multi-lines. This time we don't need to use the Alt and Enter key. We can just press Enter to go down rows. You can see this gives us a nice visualization of what row we're on, where there's an index here. We can press Tab to neatly create indentations within our code. So you can see we can achieve the same results with the standard inbuilt formula editor, but this is a lot easier to indent your code using this method, so you'll get a cleaner looking formula. If we close the Excel Labs add-in, to return that, we now need to go to the Home ribbon, and you can see we have our installed add-in on the right hand side. And if we click that, that re-expands the window. Today we covered smarter ways to write, clean up, and debug your formulas, from Excel Labs to trace arrows and error checking. If this has helped you, please drop me a comment with your favourite Excel trick or formula. Hit like if you've learned something new, and don't forget to subscribe for more Excel real tutorials. Thanks for watching.